President Trump has been in Southeast Asia for the last 72 hours, and he has been on a roll like eggs in Chinese food. Egg roll! The trip has been a strategic masterclass, big deals being signed, wars getting ended, hostilities getting cooled. And I think I understand why Trump added so much to his itinerary for this trip. He wants to checkmate China in their own backyard. China, for the last decade or so, has been vying to compete with the United States in terms of geopolitical influence in the South Asia region. And on the precipice of a major US China trade deal, Trump is just making deals with all their neighbors. For example, he signed an agreement with the new Japanese Prime Minister, deepening US and Japan cooperation when it comes to critical earth minerals. Minerals that China basically has a monopoly over. Minerals like tungsten, not necessarily a rare earth, but still a critical mineral. What moves like this do is they diplomatically isolate the Chinese while economically insulating the United States, preventing China from having untested influence in our supply chains for our products. And if the United States' goal is to reshore manufacturing back in the homeland, then certainly it would be important to have some degree of control over supply chains. The truth is, we can't make everything here overnight. God has blessed this country with tremendous natural resources. We can harvest those resources and make whatever we want. The problem is it takes years to set up those supply chains. But you can create strategic alliances, just like we did recently with Australia. We're now going to be getting minerals from Australia and refining them in the US, or refining them in Australia and importing them into the United States. We will eventually make everything here. The issue we face is, let's say Trump signs an executive order to say all coffee cups need to be manufactured in the United States. The problem is all the porcelain is made in China, so you have to rely on China at some point in the supply chain. And if you tariff the porcelain, no one's going to have any cups because you don't have any porcelain makers. And you need time for porcelain makers to realize the market opportunity and take advantage of it. But you can sign these stopgap solutions that allow your country to still make the finished product, but just rely on an ally like Japan, like Australia, to make some of those components and then bring them to the United States. It's beneficial for both sides. I've always envisioned trade as a good thing, but it can also be a really bad thing. The reason trade for the United States has been a really bad thing is because we're running a deficit. We're essentially sending all this free money to foreign countries, and they're not returning any of that money back by purchasing our products because we don't make too much. We have huge service industries and technology industries, but we don't have a real manufacturing base as we once did. We rely on our enemies to literally make our guns and our ships. China will make so many critical components for our military's major ships and guns and everything that it makes no sense why we even consider them an enemy. Because if they were a true enemy, they could literally stop us from making those things. So China's gotten rich, and they take the beautiful surpluses they make with us in trade to purchase our debt, which means we owe them interest plus the initial debt purchase back. So we're constantly in this weird conundrum where our money is being used against us, literally and figuratively. We're not actually trading things of equal value or equal amounts. Whereas good trade, I think, is when you don't have thing A, but you need it, and you have thing B, but a different country needs the thing you have. So you exchange it, and you do this constantly. You put your dollars in their economy, and they equally put theirs in your economy, and you both win. That's trade. You have jobs created in your country and jobs created in the other country's economy. So that's how trade worked before globalists hijacked US trade and China got introduced to the World Trade Organization. Things were actually fair for the United States and for our workers. 70,000 factories have closed in the United States since China got introduced to the World Trade Organization, because all they did was suck all our manufacturing away, and all we did was push our manufacturers out with these stupid laws, regulations that overburdened them, quite frankly. And Americans lost a lot of jobs. But now we see historic investments being committed to the country once again by these companies that left decades ago. And yeah, those companies will still have some manufacturing footprints in the country, but just not enough. Like semiconductors, these chips that are used for all the modern technologies we enjoy today. They used to be made in the US. We were dominant and held a huge market share in that industry. And now we barely don't. It's Taiwan. So Trump now placing tariffs on those chips means those companies have no choice but to come back to the country. The Japanese Prime Minister also gave President Trump a very special gift.
We'll extend a gift of 250 cherry trees to Washington, D.C. In addition, I understand that fireworks from Japan, from Akita Prefecture, will be shown in Washington, D.C. on July 4th next year.
That's pretty cool, right? The Japanese are known for these really cool cherry trees. I mean, people literally travel to Japan just to see these. So I don't think cherry trees themselves are inaccessible in the US, but it's a gesture. It's a nice gesture of goodwill and good faith in the relationship that's being built. Anyways, this is absolutely important work being done by the president. Of course, we recognize that it's good, but we won't really fully grasp how important these things are until maybe 20 years from now when Trump is gone. That's the nature of the game. US presidents are only appreciated long after they leave office or die. If you read any history book, people thought George Washington was like a monarchist and he wasn't strong enough and he wasn't smart enough to be the president. The Jeffersonian Republicans were on his neck, writing so many articles disparaging him. And then he died and then everyone loved him, John Adams was looked at as weird and vain. They thought his idea and obsession with the Navy was odd and that he would be like a monarchist. But in his heart, he meant well for the country. And the Navy, the United States Navy, is responsible for why we are such a great country. It's responsible for why we can conduct world trade. It's why Trump can travel anywhere and be safe, because we have boats off the shore of any country we want at all times. People thought Thomas Jefferson was crazy for the Louisiana Purchase, going around Congress to get the purchase done with Napoleon. But guess what? We love Louisiana, right? We love Louisiana, I think. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. God bless and goodbye.